Ghana's account in Belgium that apparently has had to be closed down. Tell us a bit more about this.
That report that Manasseh Asriwa put together, and we had run on JoyNews, and you heard in that report the Foreign Affairs Minister, Sheria Kobote, making the point that the situation with the closure of the accounts, which in summary is developing because the ING Bank, which is actually the embassy's bankers in Brussels, has asked that the accounts be closed without giving any reason, and a deadline has been given of the 12th of November, and the indication is that Ghana is supposed to clear that account of all money that's sitting in it so the account can be closed. The foreign minister, in that interview with Manasseh Asriwa, linked this situation to, you recall, the EU's decision to put Ghana on a list of countries that are on a watch list as far as anti-money laundering and also terrorism financing is concerned. And what this has meant is that there is increased scrutiny of various transactions that are going through the Republic of Ghana. The chairman of the Finance Committee, Dr. Marcus Beyabwa, has been speaking to us on that. I asked him what he makes of that development, and he delinks the situation in the directive to close the accounts from the EU putting Ghana on the watch list for money laundering and also for anti-terrorism, and insists that we need to wait for more details on what exactly has led to that. But he went on to say that when it comes to even dealing with issues of anti-money laundering, there's currently a bill before Parliament to allow for that. It's currently before the Finance Committee of Parliament, among more than 40 bills that the House may look at over the next 4 weeks or so, 4 to 5 weeks. And he is confident that when that bill eventually gets passed, Ghana will have very strong regulations on avoiding money laundering, and then that may eventually help us get off that particular watch list of the European Union.
They've been asked to close their account on account of this Ghana being placed on the EU's anti-money laundering.
The foreign minister draws that strong link.
No, if that were the case, if that were the case, how about the embassy in the Netherlands, in France? They are all in the EU zone. Do you understand? So
they've attempted breaking it down. Brussels is the headquarters of the EU, yeah. And so it all starts from there.
So if that is the case, then we should see it, the wind blow across all our consulates in the union. Okay, so that we are not clear about. But Ghana recognizes that there are loopholes in our anti-money laundering law. As we speak, there's a new anti-money laundering bill. That is before the Finance Committee. I'm sure you see it in the votes. It was referred to the Finance Committee on the last day, the 14th of August. We worked on it the past weekend. And so in the coming days and weeks before Parliament rises, after this 5-week meeting, we will have a new anti-money laundering law, which is tighter, which is stricter, and which will address the concerns of the European Union and other bodies. So we admit, and this is nobody's doing, cyber crimes that happen on a daily basis. The criminals and fraudsters are always ahead of legislation. And so the Anti-Money Laundering Act was passed in 2008. 6 years later, in 2014, it was amended. And another 6 years later, we are back at tightening it. I would not be surprised that in another 5 or 6 years, we would have to do something, because fraud is always ahead of the legislation.
Did you have to wait for it to get to this extent? The EU gave the warning earlier in the year. Not much was done to the extent that then
you don't rush and bring legislation here for the sake of it. There is FATF recommendations. Okay, Ghana does not operate on its own. We are in the sub-region, and you have to meet with all countries in the sub-region, put together legislation that cuts across, because, mind you, there's free movement of goods and people in West Africa.
So, sorry, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo there. Let me wrap up with you, Joseph. Does this mean that the account will not be closed? I mean, or what are the next steps to be taken as we wrap up?
So far from that, the account will be closed. Mm-hmm. What government is aiming at is to create a situation where Ghana will eventually get off the list of such anti-money laundering and anti-terrorism financing, so that then going into the future, if the banks may want to go ahead and review whatever they would want to review, then that becomes the case. We've heard the MP for Boise East and Deputy Finance Minister Kuku Kwarteng indicate that by the end of the year, Ghana would get off the list. But when you hear Dr. Makasbe Boa try to break it down, he makes the point that this legislation may eventually be approved by the end of the year. It may go through a number of other processes in terms of the EU doing the necessary assessment. Yeah. And Ghana needs to show that we are implementing some of those legislations and doing all the other things to show we are stopping possible financing of terrorism and money laundering activities before the EU will then go ahead and do that. So it may take a little longer than government is telling us that this whole issue may be dealt with.
We'll see how it goes. Joseph, thank you so much. Joseph Opoku Gakpo is our parliamentary affairs correspondent there. Let's do some politics.